In only a few short days, I have cloned Rofi and dmenu for my retro style operating system that's written entirely from scratch. Those of you who've been following development on Serenum know that I've been working on the window manager. That's a part of the normal windowing experience. And until now, the only way to launch, say, the terminal has been you hit caps enter or mod enter. But now I've added this run menu because, of course, it's easy to launch the terminal, but you can't run all your programs from here. You want to be able to run other applications like a browser, games, graphical applications. You want to be able to launch them from the window manager itself. So we have this run menu. And, like I said, it's been quite easy to develop because, I've written everything from scratch. And so adding something to the window manager is just, we just go edit the code. Can't be that difficult. Turns out the hardest thing about this was fuzzy search. Fuzzy search is if you haven't done it before, then it's a little bit interesting how you do that. That's where I spend most of my time. The font rendering and stuff I had prepared before. Thing to learn about fuzzy searching: don't trust what they say on Stack Overflow. Okay, that was what I did. I Googled, or actually I Kagi searched, but whatever. I Googled about fuzzy search, and I ended up on the common places on the web, and people said, "Hey, you need a string distance function, or a string edit distance." And one of the common algorithms for that is called the Liechtenstein edit distance or something. Don't listen to these people. This was the wrong algorithm. I probably need to change this in the future. I already had to add in a bunch of hacky heuristics to make this work. But it works for now. If I want to get Falcon, you see I get Falcon. If I add a spelling mistake, I'm still getting the right answer. If I search for donkey, I'll get data donkey 3, which is not... This is a temporary entry. In the future, I might develop data donkey into a game for Serenum. But right now, this is just a temporary entry to test things. Same thing, we can get an editor here. The reason the Liechtenstein string distance is the wrong string edit distance algorithm is it doesn't care about continuous sequences of correct text. And the reason that's bad is, say I have, we have here the word sailor, right? But if I write SR, or S like this, I guess maybe it's hard to... Sometimes you'll get funky results that surprise you. I think it's like if I... whatever. It's not that good. Trust me, it's not that good. And the reason is that we as humans care about the... what we care about actually is not the mathematical edit distance between two strings. We care about how similar they look. And that has a lot more to do with, similar long series of chars in the right order than it does some kind of edit distance. So it's actually not that good. Anyway, yeah, the way this works is pretty simple. There's a keybind internally. If you programmed before, you can imagine how this looks. You mod R, we pop open this menu. We can search in the menu. If I search browser, we'll get different results. I hit enter one of these, it selects them. Most of these are dud entries. B term here, of course, is an actual program here because it's the terminal we have. I still haven't implemented yet. For those of you who followed the live stream, I said, I think I was working on this on the live stream, is I wanted to add right now when we pass in the shell as parameter arguments when we run the window manager process. And ideally, we actually don't want to do that. We want them to be... We want to have a bunch of binaries in a directory on disk, and we want to have a little database. It's not really a database. We want a file, a data file that says, here are all the entries of all the programs that exist and can be run. And so I haven't done that yet, but that's going to be the next thing. I'll probably live stream that after I upload this video. Anyway, yeah, this menu, there's attention to detail went into this. Okay, I worked pretty hard on this today. For macrons, obviously there's, in here when we press in the terminal, if I want to type, well, for example, if I want to type Serenum properly, this is a spelling mistake because there's supposed to be a macron here. So the way I do that is I hit the tilde key. Serenum users will be used to this, and then it switches to this dark mode. And this is honestly a crude indicator. What we have for the run menu is slightly better, which is when I hit the tilde menu, the blinking underscore turns into a blinking caret. I would like to call this a hat. But this was in the font set, so that's what I ended up using. So the point is I could write Serenum here. And it has the correct apex to mark that it is a long vowel. Now, yeah. Sad thing is I bet actually I started talking about long vowels and then, everybody left the video. Anyway, yeah, so the plan for this, the data structure here is, I'm always confused by, I've obviously been designing this OS for a long time, and so everything makes sense to me internally, or the logic of it. But some might say, well, why can't you do the Linux thing of just saying, I'm just going to have things like be very publicly visible. The reason we have to have this database, let's start with this. The reason we have to have the window manager has to have a list of all the programs is because certain programs need special boot arguments. Yeah. So I just remembered the thing that is interesting that I should talk about. So, on Serenum, as some of you may know, some of you may not know, on Serenum, programs can by default not access any of the file system. Okay? And this is actually what you want for normal programs. Like, you don't want your compiler to have some special config in /etc gcc, right? That would be insane. But rather than rely on the self-discipline of programs, we actually enforce this as a hard fact, which is all the access to, well, if you have a running program, it can, in some cases, ask for access to things. Like if something decides it wants to connect to the internet, you can get a pop-up that says, hey, program XYZ wants to access the internet. Is that okay? And then but other than that, the thing you do most of the time on the command line is you actually just pass the files via the command line. So if I go in here, for example, if I want to cat a file, that's pretty easy. I can run this here, funde, with, let's say I want to look at some documentation for the compiler. Okay, that's a text file. I gave it access, when I ran the program, I gave it access to the text file because I passed it as an argument. And the shell sees that, I see this file here. Like, for example, if I misspell this, this is just to prove that this isn't a string arg. If I type this, it'll say, I don't know about this file you're talking about. And yeah, so this is most of the time what Serenum users are already used to is we have this method of passing files to programs. It's through program arguments. Well, graphical programs are a bit like your music player or your chat program, your email client. These things are a bit different from terminal programs in that we do actually expect them to have file system access by default. That doesn't mean access to all the file system, but we do expect them to be able to save persistent state across runs of the program. Okay. And the way this is going to be done is the window manager is going to, by convention, pass a config directory. So for GUI programs like this, they get run from this run menu. Say if I run Sailor, which doesn't exist, but say I'll call it Sailor just for the sake of it when I create this program. Say I run Sailor. What's going to happen is that the Sailor binary, somewhere there'll be a sailor.pb that will get run. And as the first argument, it'll get passed a mutable access to some directory called, let's say, configs /sailor or something. Okay. If this config directory does not exist, it'll be created by the window manager, and then it'll get passed. And it'll get passed as empty on the first time. And so if a program expects a default configuration, it should create that on its own when it starts up for the first time with the empty config. The reason this is good is because now the Sailor program can say the Sailor program is an email program. Okay, so instead of doing this crazy Linux thing where we have we need to store email login for the email service. And okay, what does this mean? This means, if you've done manual configuration for a mail program, there's less simple or less secure information, less secret information, like, what is the IP address of my SMTP server, what port is it? But then you have stuff like, what is the username and password that the program will use when it tries to send mail at this server. Okay, and my feeling is that back in the old days, you would have just saved, like, the naive thing, and what you would like to be able to do is just save that info to a text file. You just want config.txt. You want smtp config.txt. You want that as a file, and you want it to just contain, here's the username and here's the password. And that makes it super easy. Like, if I need to change machines, I just move this text file to the other machine, my login comes with me. Okay, we can't do this on Linux because if passwords are in plain text in a file somewhere, then everybody can read them because it's going to be in your, so for me on my normal Linux machine, this is going to be in /home sam.config. This would be the Linux thing. .config sailor password, SMTP password, SMTP login. Okay, everybody can read this file if you have this on Linux, which is why it's a disaster. You absolutely can't. You'd fail every kind of security audit in the world. Well, and you'd also just have your credentials stolen if you did this. And the reason for that is obviously any program you run has access to .config. But and so the solution that really sucks on Linux and makes things super complicated is what they'll do is they'll have, so now there's this key ring, and a key ring is like another program that's actually some kind of server that you have to run on the system, and your program actually communicates to this program, and then it's the one that stores the passwords, but it stores them encrypted on the drive, but then like the keyring has to be unlocked, which is annoying. There'll be like a manual password. There's some kind of handoff, I think, to make sure that some other program can't just show up and ask for the same login. And anyway, it's just less convenient. But on Serenum, going back here, when I run Sailor, remember, it's going to get past this mutable config directory for this program. And the great thing here is that that program, I mean, obviously I can, as the user, can go edit, look at this config directory myself. But for the most part, no other program than Sailor gets to access this config file or this config directory. And what that means is that we can simply put the SMTP login in plain text in the config directory. And so we actually can get back to the original simple dumb thing being the most user-friendly, the still same level secure, because it doesn't need to be encrypted because you can't access this. You know, maybe you'd actually still want it to be encrypted. That's a different story. Like, you know, if you're worried about the device getting stolen, maybe you want to provide a password when you start up Sailor. You know, that's fair. You could need to do that, but then that's an application feature, right? Now, what's great about this as well is when I then migrate machines, I just copy the Sailor config to the other machine, and it is guaranteed to run exactly the same. Because, and we don't need to have, I don't need to have a crazy like Nix OS install where I deterministically define my entire system in a weird functional programming language. No, I copy the binary to the other machine and I run it with the same config that I also copied from my other machine. And it runs the same, and so in this config directory for the email program, that's where it would store all my email. So, you know, I could start composing an email on one machine, save the draft, copy the executable and the config file to another Serenum device, start the email program, finish writing the email, and then send it. And then when it syncs with the internet, that email gets sent. It's just such a much better designed reality, which obviously you'll never be able to get to this on Linux because it would require coordination between different parties and no design by committee, which those two things, I mean, any one of those two things are kind of, I mean, I guess sometimes people do good things on Linux, but in the Linux world, when there's coordination, there's always a committee, and so it can't be good. It's almost a law of nature or something. Anyway, I guess if you're watching this video chances are the stream I've done after this, where I developed this system with the config directories and stuff, will be set up. Probably we should create some demo application to show this config directory. I don't know, that might just be like a key value store thing. Or maybe that's what we'll do. We'll make a notes app. Or maybe some kind of notes app, or like a Proverbs. That's an easier in terms of editing. You just can type in like one-off notes. Or it's like, maybe it's a haiku. It's like a haiku program where you open it up and you can view your previous haikus you wrote, and you can write new haikus. Thing is I don't want to get into like developing a text editor. That would be annoying. I mean, I have to do that anyway. I need to do that as the next step because obviously we don't have an editor in this new windowed environment, and I need that for this future Serenum stuff. I'm trying to think what else could I develop? Of course, once I'm finished with all this window manager stuff and we're sort of at feature parity with the, well, feature parity and beyond the existing Serenum interface, the boot shell and stuff that I use to develop currently, when this window manager can become the main user interface or main way of using Serenum, and I can make it the default and only way of using Serenum, then I will be shipping the new release. And then once the new release is out, my priority will be on, I think, doing a version control system. That's not really the priority, but it's something I've been working on the side. And so having a nice graphical version control software will be interesting. But the actual main next objective is internet access via Wi-Fi. And that will definitely make use of this config stuff, because you want to save Wi-Fi passwords and stuff across runs of, say, your chat application or what you might come up with. Yeah. Maybe the haiku program might be what I end up making. We'll see. I mean, if you tune into the stream, I guess you'll find out. And with that, I will see you all in the next video.